Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Box, and thanks for tuning into MST.TV, and today we are taking flight with a new theme coming out in Burst of Destiny, Floowandereeze. Quick pronunciation breakdown: they flew, they wander, and they have a breeze. So, Floowandereeze. This archetype is 100% a meta game changer, especially to players who know how to sequence their monster effects properly and understand the perfect timing to use the spells and traps effectively. For a quick breakdown, Floowandereeze is a wing beast based archetype using both wind and water monsters. The playstyle is focused around consecutive normal summons that lead into a level 10 tribute summon that will then prevent your opponent's strategies from taking flight. To divide up the archetype for you guys can split it up into the level 1s, the level 10s, spells and traps, and the additional support that you may already have in your collection. Starting off with the level 1s, we have two categories of level 1s, the starters / searchers, and we have the utility. But before I jump into the monster's details, I want to clarify a few shared effects among the level 1s. First thing to note, core to the strategy of the deck, is that whenever the level 1 birds leave the field while face up, they are banished instead. This is a good thing. You want them banished because the second thing to note here is that whenever a wing beast monster is normal summoned while these cards are banished, these level 1s will be able to trigger and add themselves back into your hand. This will help you cycle resources and gain more advantage over your opponent. Third thing to note, now this is core to the strategy, please do not special summon within this deck, because if you do, you will not be able to use any of the level 1 monster effects, which essentially cuts off a lot of the normal summons. And for you to get the consecutive normal summon, the fourth point is the effects of your level 1 birds need to have activated and successfully resolved to get the additional normal summon at the end of the resolution. For starters, we have Floowandereeze and Robina and Floowandereeze and Eaglin. Both of these cards are able to search out additional monsters from the deck. Floowandereeze Robina is a little bit more ideal because Floowandereeze Robina is able to search for a level 4 or lower wing beast monster upon normal summoning, and after the successful resolution of this card, you will be able to normal summon out an additional wing beast monster, including the monster that you have just searched. And if that monster is Eaglin, Eaglin will be able to, well, add a level 7 or higher wing beast monster, and then you can continue the trend from there, tribute both of these monsters for the level 7 or higher that you have just added. Personally, I would add Empen with the Eaglin effect because that will allow you to add an additional card leading you to the spells and traps, and that also triggers the ones that have been just banished because you have just normal summoned out a wing beast monster and therefore they are banished. So you get to trigger those monsters as well and arrange the chain link to your liking. You can definitely go for Snowl or other big wing beast monsters such as Apex Avian or even Rise of the Mega Monarch. These are all options available for you. For level 1 utility monsters, we have Floowandereeze and Stree and Floowandereeze and Token. Floowandereeze and Stree allows you to banish a card from either player's graveyard. However, if there's no cards in either player's graveyard, then you will not be able to use the effect, and that also means you cannot continue your sequenced normal summon that are tagged at the end of each of these effects. And that applies even more so to Floowandereeze and Token. Token's effect allows you to add back one of your banished Floowandereeze card, including spells and traps, which is great. However, when you normal summon out Floowandereeze Token and you activate its effect as Chainlink 1 targeting a monster, and then you activate that very same monster to add itself back to hand, note that Chainlink 2 will resolve first, and that's going to add back the card that has been banished back to the hand using their own effect, and then Token didn't actually add anything back, and therefore you kind of end your own normal summon sequences, and that kind of cuts you off for additional play. So just be very careful about that. But Token actually pairs very well with the field spell, which is the Magnificent Map, because Magnificent Map can banish any of your Floowandereeze cards away, and Token can immediately add that card back into your hand, basically giving you an additional spell or trap right away for you to use during your turn. And for level 10 monsters, for level 10 Floowandereeze, this is my favorite one, Floowandereeze and Empen. This Emperor Penguin has a ton of effects. This is the secret rare of this archetype, or one of the secret rares of this archetype, and what we need to know is that upon tribute summoning of this card, you get to add a Floowandereeze spell or trap, which is great because you want to have spells and traps to maintain control over your opponent. And just its existence on the field will help you maintain that control because all attack positions special summoned out monsters, they cannot activate their effects. This is a very restrictive effect against your opponent, so that locks them out from using link monster effects entirely for the most part, especially for stuff that needs to activate. That is going to be a pretty heavy lockdown. And if that's not enough, if your opponent wants to run this monster over, 2700 attack might not be the strongest, but in the damage calculation, you can banish a card and you will be able to reduce the attack of your opponents by half. That is huge, very difficult to clear monster, and also a very strong lockdown against your opponent. So don't count this card out. This card will have major impact upon the board. Now, this is not the only level 10 monster available in the Floowandereeze line. We have Floowandereeze and Snowl. This beautiful snow owl is one of your heavier hitters with 2,900 attack points. And upon the tribute summon, you will be able to conduct up to 3 normal summons this turn, not just the one. So if you have a handful of normal summons, this is where you are able to make an aggressive push. Now, this also controls the field as well, having a quick effect to flip all of your opponent's special summoned monsters face down, preventing them from going into Link Summon, Xyz Summons, or even Synchro Summons. This is a pretty good effect to stop your opponent from going too far into their ability to play, especially if that's not the thing that you're concerned with stopping their effects, but rather just stopping the monster from coming out. This is something that you might want to consider. And also, while this card is face up on the field, all of your monsters will deal piercing damage to your opponent. So it synergizes quite nicely with the flipping of all your opponent's monsters face down. Now for the spells and traps. In the initial release from Burst of Destiny, we will be granted 2 spell cards and 2 trap cards for Floowandereeze. And the one I have to talk about is going to be Floowandereeze and the Magnificent Map. For Magnificent Map, this is the ultra rare. It is very, very powerful because it has 2 key effects here. For your own turn, it can fix any of your hand as long as you're holding 1 Floowandereeze monster. Doesn't matter if it's not even one of your searchers, because you will be granted the ability to basically banish any of your Floowandereeze cards. And since they're banished, that means their normal summons will trigger the monsters that get banished, adding them back to your hand, leading to a sequence of normal summons. So how do you do that? By activating the field spell and activating the effect, revealing the level 1, you get to banish the Robina. And now part of the effect will allow you to normal summon out the card that you have revealed, so you have not conducted your once per turn normal summon. So even if you get disrupted by your opponent, as long as you have a follow-up, you will be able to perhaps perform a tribute summon against your opponent, leading down a full chain of summons from the Robina, from whatever you search. Or if you have Takan in your hand, then you will be able to add a perhaps a spell or trap that you want to get quick access to. The second effect almost doubles as a trap card because it has a summon-based trigger, which is when your opponent normal summons out a monster, you are able to trigger your field spell to grant you an additional normal summon during opponent's turn. And if you do that and you go down the line of Robina or Eaglin, that means you can search for level 7 or higher base Wing Beast monster and get those summoned onto the field. Some have stronger disruptions like Mega Ryza, which can spin away a few cards, or maybe it's just a Mist Valley Apex Avian granting you negation against spells, traps, or just any card effects in general with that particular monster, which is very, very scary. But if you use it in combination with the next spell, this is the Floowandereeze and the Unexplored Winds, this grants you even more power because now you can change up the cost of your tribute summon by sending 1 monster you control to the graveyard and 1 card your opponent controls, and you will be able to perform a tribute summon that way. And that will be the tribute summon based mechanic that you change up. It's by a card effect, and that way you get to remove a monster off of the field before you even get to the finishing of the tribute summon, granting you a free removal any card. This includes spells and traps. The second effect of the Unexplored Winds is to fix up your hand. You get to reveal up to 2 Wing Beast monsters in your hand, put them to the bottom of the deck, and then draw up to the number of cards that you have put to the bottom. So that is a nice way to actually fix up your hand in case you do draw into a ton of large monsters that perhaps you have no need for in the opening hand. But that being said, this card in general, being able to remove basically any type of card off of the field, is an immediate threat against your opponent the moment you have a single monster on the field. My favorite trap card in the Floowandereeze lineup is going to be Floowandereeze and the Dreaming Town. All it really does is it grants you an additional normal summon for a level 4 or lower Wing Beast from your hand, especially when your opponent does not somehow trigger your field spell to give you the additional normal summon to disrupt them. This can be just one that you spring on them randomly at the perfect timing, and then perhaps remove some of the threats by going into a Robina or an Eaglin and then getting your additional summon. And it works especially well when paired with a face-up Unexplored Winds. This is huge, especially when it comes to those two in combination, because now you get to remove the threat and perhaps put a bigger removal or perhaps an Apex Avian onto the field. This is actually something I really like. And in addition to that, if you have a tribute summon of a level 7 while this card is in the graveyard, you can use it as another line of defense to prevent your opponent from developing their board simply by flipping all of their cards face down into defense position. So it's just a nice little addition, and then while it's banished, Talkin can add it back into your hand. As for the final trap card, we have Floowandereeze and the Scary Sea. This one's a little bit more situational, but against the right deck, you can completely shut them up. For decks that are super reliant on special summoning, this can completely cut their turn off, because if your opponent performs a special summon that does not start a chain, you will be able to activate this card. You will be able to negate the summon, return the monster that was supposed to be summoned back to the hand, and also you will be able to cut off all special summons for the rest of the turn against your opponent, but you do grant your opponent 3 normal summons for the turn, which is considerably nothing if they rely on special summoning, but it can also backfire if they're a deck that do have multiple normal summons, especially of large monsters. And in a mirror match, this is probably not a card that you will be able to utilize because there's no special summoning. So keep in mind that this one is a little bit more situational, but against the right deck, it could be a complete turn skip against them. Floowandereeze at its core is a control deck, and there are additional winged beast monsters that are searchable from Eaglin and Robina that can definitely help you out. From Robina's side, if you want to suppress your opponent's special summons, you can lock them into wind-based summon by using the barrier statue of the Stormwinds. That's going to be pretty annoying because it almost feels like you're using a wind against your opponent, and well, it is what it is. It's a great way to kind of control what your opponent can build onto their field. As for the back row control, if you want to stop stuff in the spell and trap zone, you can definitely consider Glyph the Phantom Bird, the card that searches for the field spell of Golden Castle of Stromberg. Yeah, you definitely can consider this card as well, because upon the normal special summon of this card, you get to destroy a card in the spell and trap zone. So that's very useful for clearing stuff like Summon Limit, Anti-Spell Fragrance, and you can even use it against, say, the Imperial Order, which can lead you to turning back on your field spell. So there's a lot of great things that you can do about this deck. Secondly, for the big boss monsters, I've already mentioned it in this video, which is going to be the 2 big bosses. We have Mist Valley Apex Avian to offer you the additional negate, and putting it back in your hand is not even a bad idea after all. And then there's also going to be Ryza the Mega Monarch. This will help you spin away some cards, control the draws of your opponent, and it could really just secure the game for you, because if you can control the next 2 draws from your opponent, that could actually lock them into a bit of a loop where they either choose to take damage, or they can put themselves back into the loop where they eventually will still take damage. So that's why the Mega Ryza is going to be insane in this deck. If there's additional cards that you guys want to try out, feel free to leave it down in the comments section. That's all I really got for this video. If you guys want more about the Floowandereeze strategy, feel free to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and ding the notification bell. I'll definitely be on top of things, especially for this deck, as well as other decks coming out in Burst of Destiny. And that's all I got for this video, guys. So I'll see you guys in the next one.